Welcome to episode 16 of the Back Pick Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Thomas. Today's guest is Craig Albernaz, catching coach for the San Francisco Giants. Craig talks a lot about Gold Glove finalist Patrick Bailey and all the things that he does to work with him. He talks about his time with Buster Posey and all the things that he brought to the Giants organization. He talks about the training environments he creates, the relationships he creates, a really, really great deep dive into the holistic approach to coaching. Hope you guys enjoy it. So first off, I guess a congratulations in order. Patrick Bailey, a finalist for a Gold Glove this year. That's pretty freaking exciting as a catching coach.
Oh yeah, man. I'm pumped for him, man. I think it's one of those things where every catching coach you talk to, and that's out there, any coach in general, like you're just pumped up for the player. Like you're in there with him. You see all the work he's put in, the trial and error, the frustration, and to kind of see him get rewarded just from even being a finalist from his peers and the recognition is awesome for him, man. So yeah, I'm definitely excited for him.
So cool. Talk a little bit about the season he had. I think, he really kind of, not that it's really different, I think amongst us in the kind of the catching world, but I think to the casual fan, just kind of seeing a little bit more of the kind of shortstop actions in a sense of what he's doing with his throws and his feet and everything like that. Talk a little bit about him and his development with that. Probably a lot of natural ability, but then how you obviously harness it in.
Yeah, I mean, he threw like that his whole life, I think that's something that he's spoken about in interviews and whatnot when, he didn't have the strongest arm when he was like a teenager and he got to the big diamond. So he relied on his quick release and athletic just to get the ball in the air, and then the arm strength came with it. So when we first drafted him, even before I knew we were kind of kicking the tires on it, possibly could be a pick. You look at the videos, you're like, damn, man, this sophomore year, he was slinging it. Like he was, like you said, shortstop action, athletic, like threw from all different angles. And then you saw his junior year, you're like, man, like what's going on here? Like more climby from the top, like trying to typical, like to the air and throw. Luckily, it was only a shortened season. Obviously I say that with, everything was going on, like tongue in cheek. But,
For sure.
when he came, we started talking about it when he came to summer camp, and he was like, he was trying to get more carry on the ball for scouts and whatnot. And he asked me point blank, he's like, what do you like? And I was like, well, what do you like to do? And he's like, well, I like the way I threw my sophomore year. I was like, dude, no doubt, man. Like I'm in on that, man. Like you have the freedom, like your body's in the right spot. Like there's, you're not from video wise. Obviously, we did some biomechanical stuff on him when we got him, but like just looking at video, it looks like there's not much like this stress on your arm. Like your body's in the right posture. Like you're using your back hip well. You're using the ground force. Like all these boxes you're checking. I'm like, that's something I want to double down on and harness that. And he's like, yeah, I'm in on it. So ever since that, we just kind of just really just his plyo ball program he's done. I mean, he linked up with Tread Athletics this past off season. I managed in low A. I managed the performance coordinator, Tyler Zombro. So we got together and, he talked to his crew and they put together a great program for him. So they kind of like prep his body and his movements, before he even threw a ball. And, that's something that he's done in his minor leagues. When I challenged him on his pregame throwing, is just throw from different angles, different body positions. Like once you get loose, and have a feel for it. And obviously have a focal point for your target, being the chest or being the catch partner's face, and then just throw from different angles and make adjustments from there. And we have certain checkpoints as far as his posture and his back hip and his back foot, as I alluded to earlier. But to kind of see him grow and double down on that, and then get to the big leagues this year and kind of see it on display for everyone was awesome to see, because there was so much work behind the scenes. I like to call it the unseen hours. Alan Stein Jr. Coined that phrase. He's awesome, and I believe in that. Like he put so much work in, and to kind of see where he was at, when the lights were the brightest was awesome. And and like I keep on saying it, like there's so many people that help him and help me kind of get where he's at, and we leverage a lot of our resources to kind of make sure that he stays on point.
For sure. And I think the arm slot thing is like it's a big no teach. In terms of like with our younger guys. The lower arm slot creates much better rotation in the upper body, and if you have a higher arm slot, I'm still not going to touch it. We're going to figure it out, but it's just the idea of like he's such a great example of like wherever you feel natural being able to do it. Like we got to figure that out first before we try to make an adjustment. And I think
Hmm.
that's the piece that's been great for him for guys like me to have examples of being like, somebody who has a lower arm slot and they're, little league coach or high school coach is telling them they got to get their arm up. It's like, no, just get behind the ball. We get behind the ball, we're going to be okay no matter where we are. We'll see the spin. Is there any other tools you use in terms of like him just like seeing the spin of the ball, being that it's from a different angle, we can kind of lose that spin at times?
Yeah, I mean, I think one, what you said is spot on. Like find the back, like but be behind the baseball. I was around Kyle Snyder, the Rays big league pitching coach, for a while, and he tells all his pitchers to find the back of the ball. And it's such a simple, easy cue. But if you just find the back of the ball or stay behind the back of the ball, you're going to be in a good spot when you deliver the baseball at any position. I think you look at shortstops, that's like the holy grail of the baseball positions, and they throw from every angle, so now you're behind the plate and everything got morphed into getting to the air and being behind. That's it's tough to sell sometimes. But the tools we use, I just love the plyo balls. I love the squishiness, the finger pressure. You can get a focal point with an external cue with either tape or another visual, and then you get the feel of, you can see the ball bounce. We want to make sure it bounces down in the right spot, doesn't get squirrely off the wall. We've messed around with a clean fuego type ball with just drawing a stripe on the ball to kind of see the spin axis. And for him, he's starting to, with any player, you want them to feel it, right? You want them to be their own coach and kind of lead them to that area. So he's gotten to a point where he can feel, and when the ball comes off his fingertips, he knows it's in the right spot, and the ball flight of it. Like he understands where the ball flight. Sometimes he actually gets like a little upshoot carry, a la Tyler Rogers, with when he throws, and that's usually because he just gets underneath the ball and he's staying behind the ball, but he's just underneath it a little bit. And then I have, me. I'm usually his catch partner when he's getting ready to play, so I see the ball flight as well, and we have that interaction as well. So there's not too many like tools we use. I would say the plyo balls is kind of like our bread and butter.
Yeah, I love the plow balls and I love the clean fuegos too, because it's the idea of like, I'm not concerned if it's, 12-6. It's just,
Right.
is it tight and it's staying on the axis the entire time?
Hmm.
So like when we're in here and guys are playing, it's like, hey, you might throw it, at this angle and he might throw it at this angle. And it's all good as long as it's staying on that same axis that they're on.
Yeah, I
Obviously,
just like the not everyone has access to the clean Fuego, but like the striped ball, like that's we use that a lot too with our pitches and stuff, and you can get some cool video, because it's a great visual to play back for the guys to kind of see the line on it, and it's also the same feel of it's a baseball, so you're not worried about like the different like hockey puck feel
yeah, yeah,
of
yeah,
the throwing. Yeah.
for sure. Love it. So talk a little bit about, obviously, I mean, he had done pretty much everything in every category. He did pretty well this year. Talk about the receiving aspect in terms of, I always like to know guys come from college, and I think obviously things are evolving everywhere. But guys from college and they come to you. What's the biggest adjustment we've got to make on the receiving piece when you get those guys coming in?
The biggest adjustment in the receiving piece, that's a really good question. I think that what we usually see is just that the false glove move, or like tracking the ball with your glove, because it's just that's what catchers do, and that's what you've been coming up as a young player, is that the ball's
Mm-hmm.
thrown, you bring your glove up and you want to track where it's at, and it's tough to have the catcher to feel that patience and trust their hands and staying below the ball. So that's usually the main area, and that's something that we attacked with Patty, and he wanted to address as well. Is just the patience of just staying below the ball at all times. And obviously there is a stance component to that, to get in the right posture. But for him, it was default. Like, like looking back on and looking at old videos when he was in summer camp, and and the trial and error, and just kind of storyboarding and blueprinting kind of how we want to go about it, and like getting them. We had him put the chair backwards and have him sit over the chair with his arm hanging to feel it. Like we did so much drills just to get that feel. And if you look across the league, the better catchers in the game have that patience of keeping that glove down. So that's kind of like the main thing that we attacked with him, that we try to attack with all catches, because I firmly believe that if your glove is in the right spot at ball flight and you have that patience, it just allows you to work in all three areas at your optimal level, right? If your glove comes up, it's gonna be tough to block because now your glove has to come back down. If you're throwing, usually the pitches are going down, your glove has to be in the right spot. So I think for us, like we just want to attack that patience and make sure our glove is in the right spot, and then now we can morph into different areas.
I noticed too with him, he tends to change his pre-pitch move based on the pitch that he's catching. Is that something you guys work on as well?
Yeah, that's, for me, I'm not sure how, the industry feels about it. That's more of like an advanced move, I call it. I think there is a lot that goes into it. You have to know if your pitcher can actually get the ball that spot consistently, because you're leaving yourself wide open to a missed spot. But also like if you can cheat, and then, Patty's gifted enough and talented enough where if the pitcher misses a spot and he's cheating the wrong way, he can make up for it and keep it a strike. That the name of the game is you just want to keep strikes, and you want to
Mm-hmm.
get as many strikes as you can, without giving up too much. And so that's something that we talked about with Patty. We talked about with Joey, Buster as well. I think every catcher that we try to, once they're in a great position, they have a good feel of their glove load, their glove in space, and the pitcher on the mound. They're confident enough that they're going to get it there at a pretty high clip. Let's anticipate and cheat to it, kind of mirror the pitch shape to that, especially with the arsenal that our guys were throwing with Logan Webb and Cobby, even Tyler Rogers, right? We had some funkiness to us. So we want to not we want to cheat to it, but also give the umpire the best look at certain pitches. So that's something we talked about. And a lot of the times he just does it on field too, and that's the great thing, right? Is that you want to train, your catches as best you can. So when they go into the game, they just allow their natural athleticism to play. They can read the game and they have the feel of the game to kind of like feel and try different things. And that's what Patty is really good at.
I love it. Yeah, I haven't really like taught per se kind of the different pre-pitch, but it's kind of evolved where it's like when we're trying to just like exaggerate, if we're like
Mm-hmm.
just dragging the glove or we're doing something to exaggerate it, some guys just kind of morph themselves into like, man, when I get that slider, I just kind of like go down to the right foot a little bit more to load up. And then they start to get super aggressive with the move, which is the best part, right? It's no longer
Oh
just like
yeah,
I'm trying to make this move. It's like whack, like we're like really
yeah.
aggressively making the move, and that's what Patrick does really well.
Yeah, that's a great point, BT. I mean, I think in your training environment, right? You want to create cultivate a great training environment, and have the players lead it, and then ultimately they feel it, and then it kind of hits them. And when, like to your point, like if you're trying to over exaggerate, like ripping that pitch back into the strike zone like a right-handed slider, over exaggerating that move, and you show them on video. You talk to them, yeah, I see the feeling. You're like, dude, you're ripping the crap out of that. Your timing's great. Your glove speed is awesome. You're pocketing the ball. And then they're like, well, can I do this in the game? You're like, absolutely, dude. Like, yes, like certain pit. Yeah, and that's kind of how that conversation piece happens. So, and that all stems from the training environment. I think it's, that's something that we pride ourselves on is I do not know everything. Our coaches don't know everything. And, I leverage as many resources as we can. And a lot of it's player driven, pretty much all of it's player driven. And to kind of get that back and forth conversation, that shared ownership and that marriage. And now you can go to a game. Now the player has so much confidence in his ability to execute.
I was going to ask you that because I love that in those videos that you guys put out on YouTube, just like you coming in and being like, all right, what do you want to do today? What are you feeling today? And I love that, getting their feedback, like, what have you been struggling with? So that's obviously a big part of what you guys are doing in terms of giving them ownership of their development.
Yeah, I mean, And it's also a great box check for you too, right? So you're hoping that when you ask a player, "Hey, what do you want to do today?" Hopefully it aligns with what you're thinking or what that player needs to work on. If it's something out of left field, it's kind of like, okay, the message I delivered a couple of days ago wasn't great. So I gotta revisit how I deliver that message. I gotta, rethink my feedback loop for them. So it's a great box check as a coach. But yeah, like you want the player to come in and be happy to work. I think with the catch and position, we get our ass kicked. The catchers get their ass kicked, and the work is tough and it's grindy. And you want the players to come in and enjoy the work environment. They want to enjoy to get in there and get better. So I have them be player driven and then deliver the practice or the work that day to drive it is the best, and that's something where, initially, like when you first get a player, there's kind of like that awkward feeling out, and so it's not that player driven, but you still want to get there. But ultimately, I think the ultimate goal is to, whenever that player comes in, hey, I want to attack this today. I struggle with this. Boom, yep, it's all the same thing. Talk about it and let's ride. Let's roll. And I think it gets that speed of business much more efficient, because at the end of the day, like everyone, especially at professional level, the player's time is valuable. There's a lot of people that are pulling at them, hitting, base running, strength conditioning, whatever it is. So you want to make sure when you have them, you're getting the work. The work's concise and efficient, and they can move on. They're not there just kind of feeling their way around for a half hour.
That's a great point. I think we always forget sometimes as coaches, we're watching catchers and we're like so hard on them, or always hard on them. Coaches are always hard on them. Obviously, they have
Yeah,
more plays, and so it's difficult. We always forget they got to hit too. And I think that's a part of it that's like, sometimes
yeah.
it goes both ways, but it's like the idea of like, man, these guys got a lot, way more. Like
Hmm.
tell all the kids when they first come in, I'm like, why do you like playing this position? They all go, I like being involved. I'm like, hell yeah. But
Hmm.
with that comes a ton of responsibility, because that left fielder, he don't got to work on his defense very much. He gets to go smash all day long. It's
Yeah,
like a little different
yeah.
for us. You know what I mean?
Oh, dude, no doubt, man. Especially if, like, as a catcher, like usually you hit last. Like you have to catch bullpens and do all this stuff. Then it's like, oh yeah, by the way, go hit. And now your legs are done, your body's toast. Like, yeah, there's a lot going on. And the really good coaches I've been around, they see the big picture for the player. They know that their area is just one small piece, right? And we want to crush our area. We want to dominate that area, but there's a bigger version to the baseball player. So you want to make sure that echo that to the player, and but also you want to make sure when they're there, they're locked, dialed, and that in their time is being officially done. And like those YouTube videos, the way we set it up in Scottsdale Stadium is that bullpen is like the left field bullpen in the stadium, and the batting cage is right next door. So literally every time the guys always say it, they always give me crap about it. But when they're done with the catching work, I always say, all right, go make your money. Like go hit. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like, yep, you did your work, cool. Now go make your money, go bang. Because obviously that's where what baseball's about, especially if you're a position player. It's about that bat, what you can do in the batter's box. So I think we just have to keep that holistic version of view of the player.
absolutely. You obviously have a great relationship with your players. I mean, those videos, it's so great just seeing you interact with those guys. In that idea of you trying to be precise with your time and making sure everything's efficient, what are you doing to make sure you maintain that relationship? I love how you're like, I always say like we got to make it more than baseball, and you have a lot of conversation that goes on. That's what's going on outside of their baseball. Where do you make the time, or kind of dive into the personal relationship side of it?
I mean, all the time. I think that's something when I first started coaching. I told myself, and I still remind myself, like, this game is tough, dude. This game is hard. Like, no matter what level it is, like, this game is hard. And it was hard for me. It was a grind. I'm 5'8" on a good day. And even guys at the highest level, like, they have their ups and downs, like they go through some things, and some stuff's off the field you don't know about. Some stuff is on the field they're going with another area. So you always want to have that communication and not just be, completely transactional where, all right, what are you going to do for me with this work today? Like, let's get this in. Like your receiving numbers are down. You're not throwing great. I feel like some coaches think what the player does is a reflection on them, which to me is far from it. Is like you want to, the way you get the most out of a player for me is, having that relationship and kind of feeling out like what's going on with them. And that's why I pride myself on, I am not the smartest guy by any stretch of imagination. There is a hell of a lot more dynamic catching coaches than me that know a lot more than me, and I fully aware of that. And I think for me, I'm very humble in the point of, I know I can get better all the time, and when the players see that, they know I'm trying to get them better, and I'm always trying to look for new ways for myself to grow, and so in turn, it's only going to help them. And so my communication is like just always ongoing and constant with the players. In the clubhouse, off the field, shoot them texts, like little stuff like that. I think it just goes a long way, especially if you're just shooting the shit with them, and you see something on TV, or like you shoot them like a video on Instagram you see that's funny. Like it's like all those like the little interactions, the players really enjoy that, because they don't want to see you and they'd be like, okay, what is Albie gonna say about catching now? Like, he must have something for me or whatever. Like, they just want to like just genuinely, hey man, what's up? What are you doing? Just family good? You good? What'd you do last night? What'd you have for dinner? Like all those little things. And I think that morphs back to the previous talk about the holistic view of the player. Like, you want to talk to the other coaches too, and that's something that I think that we do really well in San Francisco. And these past couple of years was having relationships with different areas. So for me, it was with the hitting coaches, and they will let me know like, hey man, Patty, Joey, Trumpy, Buster, whoever the catcher is, like, man, we kicked his ass in the cage today. We kicked his ass in the cage today. It was a tough cage session. So I know when he comes to me, all right, I need to give him a win. Like, I'm not going to beat him down. I might have to change what I want to attack with him. All right, now let's tone it down a little bit. Let's give him a win, make him feel good. Still work on some things, but not challenge him too much. And so the next day, then you have to talk with the hitting guys, like, hey, I'm going to challenge him today. So that's why, like, I feel like the communication with every area is paramount for each player.
So good. Fires me up. There's like the communication aspect. And that's the thing I think sometimes we just lose with coaches is, the idea that these are humans and, they're not just baseball players. And that fires me up. So obviously I live in the Bay Area, so I get to watch the Giants. They're on TV every night. I'm an A's fan, by the way, but
I love that. This is random, but I grew up an A's fan as well from Massachusetts.
Did you?
I love the Bash brothers, dude. Like Mark McGuire. I can name that whole team: Canseco, McGuire, Walt Rice, Lance Blakemanship, Connie Lansford. Like, I can, like, that was my team. Oh, dude, Dave Stewart. Like that was my team. And my dad used to get mad at me because this was before. I mean, I'm 40. This is before like the internet and stuff. So my dad had to like find all this stuff in magazines to get A's stuff. So I grew up an A's fan as well. So that's awesome.
I know these kids, they have no clue how good they have it. I tell them all the time, I'm like, look, we used to, when I was a kid, we had the A's and the Giants on. You had Wednesday night doubleheader on ESPN. You had Sunday night baseball. And then we always got the Braves on, TBS or whatever it was. Yep. And I'm like, you guys just click on any game you want. You get to watch whoever you want. I'm like, we were at the mercy of whatever was on.
Yeah.
But that's awesome. You're an A's fan. But getting a chance to watch the Giants so much here, and again, I'm obviously biased because I watched him so much. I find Posey to be, just so incredible in every aspect of what he does. And it's like, it starts to get to the point where I get to these like, like, who's the greatest catcher of all time? And I'm like, man, like, I'm telling you, dude, I watched this guy for a long time. He could obviously swing it, but what he did behind the plate was, I mean, so incredible. And I just thought he was always underrated. And I think maybe just because, like without the metrics, the metrics kind of coming in kind of that like 2015 time, it was like Yachty was just going to win the Gold Glove every year. And, Posey never really could do much. Then the metrics kind of came in and kind of gave him a little more backing to win one. But talk a little bit about him, his work, and he evolved too, a little bit of the evolution of him as you had him later in his career.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to say that, right? That like Buster was kind of like sneaky underrated. Like, the dude won 3 championships. I mean, what? Like, that's
everything on his resume too.
Oh
MVP, Rookie of the Year, I mean, batting
Silver
title.
sluggers.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
dude.
insane.
Like, I cut no hitters, perfect games. Like,
Yep.
there's so many boxes that he checked. It's like,
Oh,
what are we talking? And that's why for me as a coach coming in, my first time coaching the big leagues, like I had like he's the standard. Like so now I'm very fortunate and lucky that I got to be around Buster Posey, who to me, like you put it, is like the top echelon. So I know what the standard is. So every catcher that I get now that I'm around, I know where the standard is and what to get to. And like you said, like Busta did everything well. Like his care for every aspect of the game, every little detail was high, was extremely high, and not just like because like catcher, you see everything, so it's like holding people accountable and being in the right spot on the cuts and relays, bunt plays, base running, like all like the little things. He was on and dialed, and that just came like he probably had it naturally, but like when you're grinded for so many games and you have so many plays under your belt, now it's just kind of like second nature for you. So like like Buster, I think the thing that stands out with Buster is one like the give a shit level on every little detail, but also like how he cared so much about the game and winning. Like he didn't care about the fandom and like people calling his name and like getting his name out there. He just cared about showing up to the field and trying to win that game. That is it. Like that's all he cared about, and it was refreshing to see. And his like maturation and kind of how he grew is because he just wants to win. He knows that I have to. Any great player I've been around, and Buster is probably the greatest player I've been around. Is he's just always looking to get better. Any margin for him to get better, he knows it's going to help the team win. So that's kind of like how our conversations morphed. I think I gave a presentation or a meeting to the catchers day one of spring training in 2020, and I talked about like the receiving numbers with runners on base, runners on third base. That's something where we can like win the margins. Just kind of get better is kind of elevate those numbers, show them the numbers with balls in the dirt, the percentages, stolen bases, like all that stuff, all the stuff that we know that's out there. And Buster, after the presentation, came up to me. He's like, "Man, that was like one of the coolest things I've been a part of because I knew that innately. I knew that, and to actually see the numbers was awesome to back it up. So now I know, all right, Buster is one, he's extremely intelligent. So I know that he can digest information, he can take it in, I can give him the numbers and he's fine with it. So that was a great relationship builder right away. So I know I can stop pouring stuff into him, especially with the changes our pitching staff was making with certain guys and swaying the usages and setting up in different spots. I think that was the biggest change for Buster was he was so used to catching Peavies, the Tim Hudsons, the Matt Canes, where he can just move corner to corner and they're going to dot up. But the guys that we have, we just wanted to get them over the white with their plus stuff.
mhm.
So now it's like, okay, we talked a ton about missed locations, missed spots, and like dealing with that, making sure you're in the right spot. And that's kind of how it morphed into like where he was at in 21. And from a stance standpoint, it was given to him different options that day, as he took off the whole 2020 season. And he was obviously at the end of his career. He retired after that year, but your body's not responding the way it wants to, right? So to sit in a squat, a traditional stance, you've talked about it at length on this podcast, but it's not for everyone, right? And same thing with the knee down. So if your hips are not feeling great that day, why would you force yourself to get in that stance? His left knee down, now you can move this way. Oh, okay, well, now your ankle, is not feeling great. His right knee down, let's work on that. So now you have that option as well. So it's just weaponizing them to have different stances to deploy throughout that game. And also like and then we got into pitch types and how like certain stances can help you with pitch types and stuff. And he loved that information. That's something where like I'm extremely humbled by that we had that relationship and that he was that open-minded to have those conversations. And he was a big driver of why we won 107 games that year. It was because of him. And everyone looked at him as a leader, and rightfully so. But when you see your leader that's trying everything to win and trying different things and kind of getting out of his comfort zone a little bit, was awesome. So I'm extremely indebted. I love Buster. I'm very fortunate. Like I said, like now for me as a catching coach, I have the standard. I work with the standard. I know what that looks like from every area of the game. So that's kind of like my checkpoint for all of our guys.
And I think that's the, again, like you said, every stance is different for every guy. They're not for everybody, but it is the idea of like taking it a little bit deeper. Like, are you finding that like guys like Posey like just started to feel a little bit better at the end of the year by utilizing that?
Yeah, absolutely. He's like tongue in cheek. He would say, "Man, I wish I'd done this a little earlier in my career. You know, I would have my like legs underneath me and whatnot." I mean, there's been I think that's the feedback I get from catchers when they first start transitioning to knee down. And I think like the misconception with us is that we change guys to knee down, and it's actually just a byproduct of the training environment. You know, we get them down, like they figure out that I can actually block easier and I can read the ball flight a little longer. You know, I think the nature of this game is like we're just trying to buy more time, right? As an athlete in the box, we're trying to buy more time to see the pitch type, you know, in the infield, out, going down the mound as a pitcher. Like we're all trying to buy more time. So as the catchers, they're like, man, I can buy myself more time, and I can actually blocking is easier, like from this position. So that's kind of where like that all morphed to, and that's where like the feedback they get, like, man, my body is I can block for days. You know, I think when I was a young minor league coach, and before we did, you know, the knee down was prevalent. It was like you had to set aside a blocking day, and like you had to like give the catcher a heads up, like, yo guys, we're blocking on Wednesday. It's Monday. Like make sure your body's ready to block. But now we literally block every day. Like every day is blocking because we're doing some type of like reaction, ball flight reads with receiving, blocking, throwing, make sure you're in the right spot. And so now we're blocking more consistently, not having that high volume day where you just crush the catches. Because I know when I was in my leagues, like I remember like, oh shit, it's a blocking day. I am about to get my ass kicked. And you were done. And you would, but then you didn't block for another like 4 days, you know. So I think like this assured consistency of, you know, getting balls in the dirt is helping these guys.
Yeah, whenever I get guys and I kind of start to just introduce the one knee stances, I'll do blocking and I'll be like, okay, go traditional.
Mm-hmm.
We block, maybe like 15 balls. And then I go, okay, go grab a drink of water and then come on back, and then they go knee down and they start blocking. And it becomes, I'm like, how do you feel right now? Like, I'm good. I'm like,
Yeah.
there's a difference in that. I said, now we got to, obviously production is number one,
Mm-hmm.
right? But at
Right.
the end of the day, there's something to that. And a guy like Posey, man, I mean, geez, the guy, like we talked about, MVP, batting title, and we've spent the
Mm-hmm.
last 5 years of his career, everybody going, maybe he should go to third base, or maybe it's like,
Right.
but we never thought, as like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, never thought to figure out how to make it a little bit easier on those guys catching.
Yeah.
Because again, you have a guy that, how could you take that guy away from behind the plate? I mean, that to me
Oh,
was like the most absurd thing. I tell people all the time,
I agree.
the 3 World Series, people like if you look at it just casually, it's kind of like they all had pretty good pitching, obviously, and they kind of got some guys that were hot. But the biggest difference was they had different pitching staffs every time. Right? It wasn't the same. It
Yeah.
wasn't like Lincecum, Bumgarner, and Kane were healthy all of those 3 championships. It was like it was Lincecum in year one was the guy, then he fell off, and Kane was the guy, and Mad Bum was kind of the consistent one through those, and then became the
Mm-hmm.
guy at the end. But I'm like, do you know how difficult it is to manage that as a catcher? All those different pitchers moving in and out year and year. He was the consistency in that. And I think what kind of relationships with the pitchers did he have? Obviously, it appeared like he was. I even forgot about the no hitters and the perfect games he brought up. I'm like, geez, like how insane is that? And
Yeah.
obviously, that's just a testament to the relationship, the pitch calling, and all of that. What was he like with the pitchers?
Oh, he was great. I mean, he was like just a steady presence in the clubhouse. You know, he was always having conversations with the pitchers, always like revisiting, you know, pitch calls. Hey, how's my setup for you? Is anything I can do better? Like he was literally trying to get the most out of them, and that's something where it was never about him. It's never about him. It's about the team, and that's something where that selflessness, that leadership mentality he had just permeate through the clubhouse. And And like obviously you brought up the starters, but even the relievers, man, like he did it with different closers. Some of the closers that with Brian Wilson, Sergio Romo, Castillo, like it's so many dudes that he had and gnarly stuff out of the pen. That's tough to catch because you don't have that relationship of catching 100 pitches with them. You know what they're doing, and you're catching their pregame bullpen. These relievers are coming in sporadically, and you have to deal with their nasty crap in the game and get the most out of them. And like when in 21, a young Camilo Duvall is up, and Busta and Camilo was like trying to figure out like who he was. Busta literally just goes, Camilo, throw whatever you want. You can shake me off, throw whatever you want, because he knew for us to win games, he had to get the most out of a rookie closer. And how is he going to get him comfortable? And to get comfortable was him just going to Camilo, throw whatever you want. I trust you. I got you. Don't feel like you have to throw what I call. And that's a dude that has so much clout. And like we talked about with the perfect games and the World Series championship. So have a young pitcher to go, oh, he trusts me to throw whatever I want. Oh, okay. So now he has conviction whatever he's throwing. So again, that's a testament to Buster. He doesn't have an ego. And that's something where I try to portray to every catcher is that you want them to have pride in the game calling and the game prep, and you like obviously you feel a little taken back when you get shaken off, but at the end of the day, it's the pitcher's game, and the more they trust you, the more they feel themselves on the mound, the better. And not to get defensive because it's not about you; it's about that guy in the mound. That's something that Buster really did extremely well. So he was just a total pro, pro.
Yeah. Was he like super vocal as a leader? It's almost like you don't have to be when it's like, oh, if he's doing everything right, like everybody just goes, I'm gonna do that.
He was vocal when he needed to be, which was great because I think it wasn't that he's not a rah rah leader where it's just like a constant voice talking. Like he was quiet to himself. He had great feel of like when to talk shit, when to bust people's chops, but when he had something to say, people listened because it's not like he was talking a lot, and like overly being communicative. So it's like, oh crap, Buster has something to say. I better listen. Like he's talking to me about this. If something he must be seeing something, so I gotta listen. So he leveraged how he wasn't overly communicative. So when he delivered a message, it landed.
Yeah, I always told kids, like when he was playing 5-7 years ago, I'm like, do you realize what we have in the Bay Area with Buster Posey and Steph Curry? I mean, it's like,
Oh man.
talk about like they're so similar to me in the way of like, they are the hardest worker. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody else goes, all right, well, if that guy's working, then I got to be working. Right. And they're
Right.
both, and you've already said this, both coachable. So then you get to the point
Yeah.
of like the guys that really need to kind of get better and get some coaching. If they're seeing, if they can see Posey can see you coaching him, and or people can see you coaching Posey, and then the guys on the Warriors see Steve Kerr coaching Steph Curry hard, it's like everyone else
Mm-hmm.
goes, oh shit, I gotta pick it up. I think that's such a
Exactly.
key to it, to the leadership piece, is like, if you want to be the best, like you don't just get everything handed to you because you're the best player. Like you've got to be the prime example.
Yeah, and that's something where, I was a young catcher coming up. It was always like, you got to be vocal, you got to be loud. Like, yes, no doubt. Like, when you're directing traffic, you got to be loud, but it's not just like dead noise and you just have to like start like yelling at people. Like, no, like bust your ass, but like getting behind, backing up the base, or like on and off the field, like all like the little things like you're talking about. Players see that. So when he's doing that, it's like, oh, I got to do this. But also he was great about asking questions to other catchers. I remember in 21, like he's asking Chadwick Tromp, who caught a lot of games for us in 2020, and he was knee down, and he was asking Trumpy questions like, hey man, like what do you got with knee down? Like what are you feeling? What are you trying to do here? So now in like the group setting, you see other catchers, you see Buster talking to Trumpy about his catching and asking like genuine, thoughtful questions. It's like, oh, yeah, okay, he doesn't know everything. He's actually curious about how to get better. So that's kind of like the player driving the culture, and that's something where again, I completely indebted to him just how he delivered the message and like how he interacted with his peers.
So cool, man. It's awesome to get that insight on such a good player, man. He's such a
Oh man,
just
dude, he's
insane.
such a dude, man.
Yeah.
He's such a dude, and now he's
I
kind of my boss. He's doing his thing, which is it's cool. It's fun.
I'm pumped he's back, man. I mean, I know like
Oh
right when he,
man.
when he retired, he was saying he's going back. I know he did go back to Georgia, but I mean, talk about a legend in an organization. Having him stick around, that's massive,
Massive. Great. It's a great resource. It
for
really
sure.
is.
So I want to talk a little bit about you because you're a good story too, and obviously we got a lot of young catchers, young players in general that are with us and hopefully listening in. You went to a small Division II school,
I did.
and
Eckerd
you
College. Yeah.
and
Yep.
you ended up playing professional baseball. And I think these are always stories that we have to tell because it's such a Division I or bust
Mm-hmm.
mentality these days. Talk a little bit about, just your playing Division II and then what happened after and how you were able to get opportunities.
Yeah. Oh man, so that's my looking back on it. Obviously I had to go through some interview processes this off season a little bit with certain jobs, so it's fun to revisit like where you came from and kind of like where you're at now. And I went to a small. No, I'm from a small town in Massachusetts. And luckily my dad was awesome. I had some really good baseball guys around me in Massachusetts, and I wanted to go D1 just like anyone. And I started varsity as a freshman, 4 year starter. So in my head, I'm like, yep, I'm gonna go D1. I'm gonna get drafted, all this stuff. And I was cocky as hell, man, like cocky, arrogant, because I'm smaller. So I felt like I had to be a little different. And I made a verbal commitment to go to Providence College, my freshman year. But then they got rid of the program, because of Title IX. So I was kind of left without a spot to play, and I wasn't really feeling any of the D1 schools in the Northeast. It just wasn't like my style. I didn't really vibe with any of the coaches. And lucky my dad was like, you don't feel like you have to go to Division I. Like, don't feel like you can go wherever you want to go. Like, if you're good enough, they'll find you. And luckily, the head coach from Eckerd College is from Newport, Rhode Island, Bill Matthews, and he took a chance on me. So obviously I went down to my recruiting visit in like December, I believe, and I leave snow and 20 degrees, and I land in St. Pete, Tampa area, and it's like 75 and beautiful. I'm like, yep, done, bet, I'm coming here. Like, that was it. And oh man, like my experience at college was phenomenal. I was around a lot of great baseball people and men. Like we had like the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, like a lot of their players train with us in the off season, and so I was around like Joey Gathray, Derek Anderson, Nick Beerbrot, like all these guys I seen at professional level are now working out with us, and they would kind of like take me under their wing, and like we would go out and have dinner, and I would catch their pens and stuff, so I kind of get to see and interact with those guys. So that was a great experience. And then kind of after I was a senior sign, well, I wasn't a senior sign. I was a senior. I get invited to go to the pre-draft workout at the Trop, and I had a pretty decent workout. And the area scout was like, we're probably gonna take you second day. I'm like, oh hell yeah! Call everyone back home. Like, yo, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go second day. Blah blah blah. Draft came and went. Nothing happened. So that was I tell the story all the time. Like, to me, that was like the most humbling experience. And I kind of changed who I am and kind of reason why who I am today. Because like I said, I was cocky and arrogant, and then you get told like, yeah, you're not even going to get drafted, and you have to go back home with the tail between your legs and get a real job. It was tough. But then so I got a real job, and then the following year, there was some movement. There's a new head of amateur scouting. A couple catchers retired, so they needed a catcher to come in and catch bullpens in spring training. So they asked me to do that. So I signed like a contract to do that. And next thing I know, I turned it into a 9 year playing career in the minor leagues. So I think for me, like, no matter where you go, as long as you have an opportunity to play and you're in the right situation in college and you have the right people around you, you're going to get the most out of yourself and you're for what you can potentially can do. I try to tell a lot of catchers and a lot of young players, when they go through that process, is to make sure that they're finding the right situation for them. You're interviewing the college coaches, you're interviewing the travel ball coaches for that facility. Like, you want to make sure that it's the right spot for you. You're not just going to go to a certain area because the name across the chest. Like, at the end of the day, the name across your chest is always going to change. you're going to play for a variety of different teams. The name on the back of your jersey is never going to change. So you want to make sure that you're in the right situation for you and you're able to grow and get the most out of yourself.
You don't just date the girl because she likes you. You date her
Yes,
because you like her. And I think that's
exactly.
like the thing I tell guys.
Yes.
I'm like, it's just way too much of like, well, I just want attention. I just want, it's like, what the, you have no idea. You're just like waiting for that trip. You got your Twitter post already, set up to announce your commitment. It's like,
Right.
dude, you don't even like, it's a whole different experience. You said it. Weather was a big piece of it for you. We got kids from California that go out to the Midwest and like, oh yeah, I'm going D1. And I'm like, all right, well, let me know what Chicago's like in January and we'll see where you're at. You know what I mean? It's a different, whole different world,
A whole different world. It's so tough just to chase, like, and, bring it back to me. And like, I use that experience now. Like, I'm not trying to chase a job title. I'm trying to chase the right people around me, the right organization. Like, that's where I want to be. I want to be in a great culture where, we can all strive to win a championship and get the most out of our players. And as a player, like, you want to go to a place to do the same. You want to get the most out of yourself. You want to know that the coaches are invested in you, just like you're invested in the program. And and a lot of some coaches, I say everyone, it's tough to blanket everyone, but it's a lot of transactional relationships. But at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for you. And sometimes that might be going to the Midwest and finding a great program from, coming from California, or it might be just staying home and going to a NIA school and dominating there and, and getting the most out of yourself. And that's what, one of my good friends, Stephen Vogt, that's what he did. He went to an AIA school, and did his thing and dominated. And he was a 2-time All-Star in the big leagues. Like, there's so many, like, baseball is awesome because there's so many avenues that you can go and play and get recognized and see different experiences and get the most out of yourself. And that's why I try to tell anyone I talk to as far as like the younger players.
I love it, man. I appreciate you spending that message because it's just such a big deal right now in our youth game. But man, you're the man. This has been great. I'm gonna ask my signature last question here, which if you've listened, but I need to know along your journey one place to recommend to eat, whether it be back home in Massachusetts, maybe here in the Bay, Florida, whatever. What's the first one pops into your head?
God, the first place, I mean, I always go back home. I feel like where I grew up has some great food. Like, it's where I'm from, it's called Little Portugal. So, and I'm half Portuguese, so there's so many great like Portuguese restaurants back home, like little sub shops like Marzilli's Bakery, phenomenal Italian sandwich, Italian sub. There's Academica, Carvella, like you have no idea about these places, but like there's like those foods, and that's the beauty of like the minor league life is that, like, yes, it's a grind, but you get to experience so many like different foods, like barbecue spots. I think it's the best barbecue I had is actually in the New York area, this place called Dinosaur Barbecue. Phenomenal. So I think it's in Rochester, it's in Syracuse. I suggest anyone to go there. But for me, like in the Bay Area, I just love like the random food trucks and getting like tacos off the food trucks. Just like where I live now, where I'm from, like the Northeast, like authentic street tacos is not available. So anytime I'm in San Diego, LA, the Bay Area, like I try to get like the food tacos and I just start crushing tacos, man. Like that's my thing because I just don't get it. So just food truck tacos for me is my go-to on the West Coast.
I love it. I know we're so lucky here. I lived in Canada for 3 years, and everywhere I'd go, I'm just kind of like, so where do I just get a burrito or something? And they're like, oh no, we just like, it's not even there. You know what I mean? It's like, man, a minute I came home, every time I'd come home to visit, first thing I do, man, pick up a burrito on my way home from the airport.
Oh man. And that's where like this on like Mexican restaurants here. And I was like, yeah, I want like an authentic street taco. Like, that's it, dude. Like, just hook me up with that and I'm good. Like, no, you want like, no. Authentic street taco, I'm good. And it's so tough to convey that to them. But oh man, like the tacos, the San Diego visiting clubhouse.
Oh.
Yeah, I must run through about 20 tacos when I'm there. I feel like especially when our team gets in there, that's all they do. I feel like they're just firing tacos at us left and right. and we just start crushing. It's fun.
The line cooks are like, Albernaz is coming. Let's go get those tacos made.
And I'm that dude that's there early at the field, like there early. So as soon as I come in, they look at me and start laughing. I'm like, not yet, but you know it's coming. You get that order ready, dude. Hell yeah.
I love it, man. Hey, I appreciate you coming on, dude.
I appreciate it. I know we've been trying to link up for a while, and you know our schedules haven't connected, but I appreciate you having me on, man. I love what you're doing. I love the podcast, and it's humbling to be on here with you and keep moving the game, man. Keep making an impact. It's fun.
I appreciate you, and we'll keep in touch.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you.
All right, man. Thanks again. If you enjoyed that, be sure to like and subscribe. We'll have a new episode for you every single Tuesday here on our YouTube channel and wherever you listen to podcasts.